Welcome to the Pregame Show Network. This is the Pregame Show Rewind. I am Tolly Carr, and we are fresh off of last night's game. North Dakota State. Colorado, oh boy, if you're anything like me, I know the pain. I understand the heartache, the what is going to happen, the ulcer, the Pepto-Bismol that you needed to take. I understand it all because I was there in the first half along with you. But the second half, it was an entirely new ball game. What's up, everybody? I'm Tolly Carr, just hanging out here. HBCU Game Day Studios in Atlanta. We are going to talk about the Buffaloes, but I cannot do it by myself. I have to bring in this man right here. There he is. Smooth beard and all. It is our favorite uncle, Uncle Neely in the house. What's up, my man?
What it do, TC, Tully Carr? I'm not going to say it, but I guess I am going to say it because I was going to say I'm not going to say BBL, Tully, but I am going to say it. BBL, Tully.
Hey, man, look,
BBL,
I talked to my mother last night, and my mother she wasn't feeling it. She said BBL Tolly was the bill collectors are calling me. Neely, they know when we go on the air. They think I'm making money because I'm talking. They said, let me call him right now, see what he's talking about. Mom said she wasn't feeling it, but if you guys love it, BBL Tolly, so it is. Neely, last night.
Yeah.
I know a game is different, right? When you are there and you get more of a sense of the vibe, you get more of a sense of how the players are feeling. You know, it's kind of like riding on a plane, right? You might feel a little bump, but then you look over and if the stewardess is okay, you're like, all right, that's not that bad. So you got to hear the players. You can hear what they say, you know, we need to correct this, or we're in good shape. We're not that bad. So you have a different experience, and you know what the players are capable of. Neely, at home, it's a terrible experience, man. I'm speaking for the fan who might have some control issues, right? And you're watching the game, and you can't control anything. And you want Colorado to come out there and punch their opponent in the mouth, and you want it to be 35-0 at halftime, and then you might feel okay. You know, I'm that fan. So when that thing is back and forth, it's not that it's, you know, not entertaining. But, boy, it is nerve-wracking when you can't control anything, you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't want to see Colorado lose, especially to, God bless North Dakota State. They are an excellent FCS program, but Colorado cannot lose that game last night. And fortunately for our Colorado fans, they did not. So I was a nervous wreck in the first half, a little better in the second half. What was your experience of Game 1, Season 2 of the Coach Prime era last night against a very, very good, this was not Cupcake City, against a very good North Dakota State team?
I think it went exactly as we figured it could go, not exactly as planned. Tolly, you remember you asked me my prediction, and I had the Colorado Buffaloes at 31 points. I was wrong on what North Dakota State would score. But you have to admit now, when we talked about this game leading up to it for the days and even weeks, we talked about what a quality program this was. We talked about how this was somebody you cannot overlook, that they're known as giant killers, that for the past 14 years, they have won 6 out of 7 games when playing up a division. Now it's 6 out of 8 because they lost last night. So in the words of Denny Green with the Arizona Cardinals at the time, they are exactly who we thought they were. Coach George saying this isn't a game that, you schedule. Why are we even playing these guys? It reminded me of Apollo Creed, who was clearly the better boxer, taking on Rocky Balboa, and Rocky just kept coming. The way those guys controlled the clock, the way they were able to extend drives off of penalties on our end, you just let you know what a quality program and well-coached program you were playing. Having said that, to more directly answer your question, on the sideline, in the coaches' huddles, in the offense and defense huddles on the sidelines, even in the locker room at halftime, this team, this staff, these coaches, these players never felt as if they were going to lose this game, no matter how it may have looked in execution. And then when you look at the adjustments made in halftime, I think North Dakota State only scored 6 points in the second half. And so that lets you know what is capable with this staff and these players. But hats off to North Dakota State being exactly who we thought they were, a tough opponent.
All right, Neely, let's go to the comments because that's what we have really enjoyed and leaned into as we start to do the rewind live here. We got some people. Brian Painter says that your beard is looking sharp, so we always know that the beard game is sharp for Neely. We got Atlanta checking in. All right, let's go to the basement. Username the basement. Neely, he says Coach Livingston's refusal to adjust the defense from man to zone, even though the North Dakota State quarterbacks were running wild, was unacceptable. The basement did not like some of the defensive calls. How would you say Colorado adjusted to North Dakota State? Because in that first half, there was a lot of running wild. But as you said, the second half, they kind of locked things up.
You know, I talked to Coach Prime during our walk and talk going into the half and asked him about the defense. And before I could get the question out, he told me he wasn't worried about it, that the defense was going to adjust, and he had confidence in our skill set and what we're going to be able to do in the second half. And sure enough, it came true. As far as the lack of or an unwillingness to leave man coverage or any coverage for that matter, I think Rob Livingston knows the talent that he has back there and what that talent is capable of. I do want to say that losing Cameron Silman Craig from the safety position right after the third play of the game, I think, is when his injury happened. Although he did go back in for one more play, the rest of that night he sat down. I think that caused a ripple effect in the defense that we had to adjust to. But when you really watch the game and see what took place, it was still some self-inflicted things. Some of the penalties that we had on defense during crucial drives. You remember we were about to get them off the field. It was 3rd and 8, and we did a stop, and Deion Sanders had a personal foul called on him that extended the drive, and they scored on when he dipped his shoulder and hey, what happened? What do you mean? And so those kind of things we just cannot do in those situations because they extend drives and thereby put points on the board. Again, when you look at that first drive, it was I think 2nd and 8, and they get a big play. Short pass or a run, I think it was, but it was on Trevor Woods, and that was when Cameron Silman Craig was out, and they ended up getting 3 points on that opening drive. So there are definitely some things to clean up defensively, but when you look at what took place the second half, Tyler, the math is the math. 6 points in the second half.
All right, Neely, you alluded to this, that you did talk to Coach Prime at halftime, and he kind of gave a little reassurance and an assessment of what happened in the first half. I'm going to have to be very flexible here. We're going to play and hear from Coach Prime right now. This is with Uncle Neely at halftime.
Coach, do a walk and talk. Halftime, we made a run back at the end, but defense.
This is what college football is all about. Defense getting ready to hit their strides. They're getting ready to hit their strides. They had to take a little time to get warmed up. We didn't get that first down. We had to go for it. We got to get some momentum, and they came to play. I'm proud of them. They came to play, but we did too.
Yes, sir.
All right, so he of course talked about the slow start, but he had confidence that they were going to get it done in the second half, and they did. Neely, where do you think that confidence, we know why he has it, or we know that he has it, where do you think that confidence came from that the second half they would turn things around?
It comes from strength and conditioning summer session 1, strength and conditioning summer session 2. It comes from fall camp. It comes from having a headset on and hearing what the coaches are saying to each other. And it also comes from what he knows he's about to say to the coaches at halftime. So there was no worry or much concern about what the defense was going to be able to do in the second half. And I got to give Coach Prime credit. Like, he called his shot. Like, what he said walking into that tunnel is exactly what happened as far as the defense, standing firm, less penalties, giving up less yards, giving up only 6 points in the second half. So hats off to him.
Neely, we talked about this when we went live on, I guess, Wednesday, right before, day before the game. I asked you what level of, we've been through practice, we've been through 2 camps. Some players were here in the fall that were not here in the spring. There was still some meshing that would have to occur once it became a real game and you got outside of the practice element. Was it reasonable going in to think that, hey, that first half you were still going to see some adjustments, some meshing? You talked about the injury to Cameron Silman Craig there. That some personnel you were depending on wasn't there. Was that nothing to worry about, so to speak? That just kind of had to work some things out through that first half. It's the first game of the year.
It is absolutely the first game of the year. You were absolutely playing a quality opponent. I said before, and I keep on saying it. North Dakota State is not a slouch program. People look at them being down the division as if they're not highly capable, but they're at the top of that division. These are guys who've been national championships. These are guys who have players on that team who've been playing together 4, 5, and 6 years, and we have a team of guys who really haven't played together but once, and that was that night. But when you look on the offensive side of the ball, you can see what chemistry does. What Travis and Shedeur were able to do, what Jimmy Horn and Shedeur were able to do is a byproduct of chemistry. I think this defense will be the same way as we get to weeks 2 and 3. You're going to hear more and more names that are contributors because they're going to have in-game confidence of working with each other. And still, Tolly, having said that, let's not lose sight of the fact of the end of the game is that the Colorado Buffaloes won. Shedeur Sanders in his collegiate career, thereby Coach Prime and his, have never lost a season opening game, and by also stretch haven't lost a week 2 game, whether that was Jackson State or here at Colorado. So just looking forward to building this process and getting better week to week. Your biggest improvements in football are always going to come between the end of the first game and the end of the third game. And so what I love about our schedule is, we open with North Dakota State, got that win. Our next 2 opponents are not slouches either. But from a mental standpoint, they're people you played last year and you won last year. And so those give you opportunities to get some things right, to work on some things, to hone your craft before you go into conference play September 21st when Baylor comes to town.
All right, let's go back to the comments, Neely. Let's shout out some people here. Marco Polo, he is in L.A. or Louisiana. I'm going to assume L.A. in this case means Los Angeles. The basement is the base. You need to get the basement. Whoever the basement is, get this guy on the staff because he has all the play calls here. The basement, this has got to be the last time I shout you out. You've already second mention already. He liked the pass-run ratio at 60-40. He didn't necessarily like the run design. He had some issues there. We'll talk about the run game in a minute. Oh, Jesse Marion, I like this. I'm going to put my own kind of inflection and tone on this. Who scheduled this game? The boss did. The AD actually scheduled this game. And they got a check. So they got the shine and looked good. Didn't get the win, but they got a check. And a lot of people who may not have known who North Dakota State was before yesterday, they definitely know who they are now because they were on prime time and Sports Center, and everybody's been talking about them because of the effort they gave to Colorado. Did they have any penalties? They did. Not a lot of penalties. Now the few that Colorado had were, especially those couple in the first half, lining up in the neutral zone and then that late hit because they came on third down. But overall, from a flag perspective, I thought the game was, for the most part, pretty clean, Neely.
Yeah, I think that there was a mindset from the officials, kind of a let them play mentality. I think there were some calls on both sides of the ball that were missed, which make you look at the officials. But one thing I will say, the officials didn't have any impact on the toughness of this game. There was a holding call that was not called. Travis Hunter was clearly being held in the end zone where he could have made a tackle.
By the waist.
And a touchdown.
Like those hands were outside.
Yeah, that was just like a totally blown call. But overall, as far as Colorado goes, we were the second most penalized team in the nation last year. And I think this game, particularly with this offensive line, has really shown that we have improved in that area. There were not a lot of penalties called on us last night, and that's what you want. You want growth. Tyler, let's deal with something right now in the real world. And I'm going to flip the script and ask you a couple of questions.
Uh-oh. Good night, everybody. Okay, go ahead.
What aspect of this team from last year, glaring aspect, needed the most improving?
Offensive line.
Shedeur Sanders, one of the most sacked quarterbacks in football last year, was only sacked one time last night. Check mark. Mm-hmm. What the second to that, I will give you the answer to this one, was our inability to stop the run. I think they averaged just above, 3 yards a carry, maybe 3.5, 3.7 a carry.
3.7 yards per rush.
They had some big runs that skewed that average, but for the most part, our defensive line showed, even in week 1, we can indeed stop the run. The other thing was to make sure that we have a play calling system that situates the talent that we have on the field, which is Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr., that receiving core, best room in the nation, arguably. And that was done. So people need to look at this game for what it is. One, Colorado won, and then two, all the things you needed to improve in, and also make sure you maintain or grow in. It happened.
Absolutely. The top end talent, I think, was the difference for Colorado. Like North Dakota State just could not match Travis Hunter. They could not keep up with Jimmy Horn Jr. And obviously Shedeur does his thing. Let's talk about some of that top end talent. Neely, let's start with the biggest one, the one that has everybody talking, that catch by Travis Hunter. Neely, he's in the end zone. He's like quasi getting tackled. And the importance of that is he no longer has his legs as leverage. Like he cannot, the position he was in, he was kind of stuck because he's halfway to the ground. The defender is on one arm across his face. And I don't know, Neely, if it's core strength, the ability for Travis to be in that position and to maintain and be upright and move and get his hand. Like, that was so incredible. And it was a delayed reaction on TV from the announcers because, you know, watching it in real time, you're like, oh, well, good God, the man's getting tackled. It's pass interference. He's not going to catch that ball. And it's like, what? He caught it? Like, how did he catch that ball? That was, you know, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but Neely, we've seen some good catches in our lifetime. People getting the ball stuck to the helmet and one-handed grabs and all that. That was a professional catch. If we don't see anything any better of a catch this year, I would not be surprised. That was a hell of a play.
Absolutely. You described it to the T, Tyler. And one thing I want to emphasize, you saw what a catch it was, but let me tell you what you did not see. You didn't see a damn flag. I mean, it was pass interference all the way. And you didn't get a flag on time. You didn't get a late flag. And it reminds me of Hack-a-Shaq, man. Just because a guy is hella talented like Shaquille O'Neal was in college doesn't mean that you can just beat him up and the refs don't call it because, well, he's good enough to take it. Some of the calls that Travis didn't get were just, you know, insane to me. But I love the conversation between Travis and Shedeur on one play where he was pass interfered. And didn't catch the ball. Shadeur's like, yeah, but you still got to catch it. And so he said he had that in the back of his mind on that catch, that even though, you know, he was just being beat all the way to the pylon, literally not beat in coverage, but just pummeled on, that he said, you know what, I'm catching this damn ball because I don't want to hear Shadeur's mouth. And thankfully he did because a flag wasn't thrown. But Shedeur Travis, man, their connection is off the charts. It's in midseason to late season form already. And I really think some of these catches that Travis make, you know, it needs to be like the Olympic gymnastics scores. There needs to be a degree of difficulty measured into it, so it's not just 6 points, but he can get 7.5 on a touchdown because the way he can come down with the ball and get his feet in bounds is just spectacular.
Man, 3 touchdowns last night for Travis Hunter. And, you know, we talked on Wednesday, you know, Neely, we kind of asked you which receiver was going to have a breakout game to start the year. And you kind of answered it and you were like, well, you know, Travis is, but you were like, yeah, but Jimmy Horn is too. So kind of like, all right, you know, in this world, you don't always have to have a hot take one answer to the question. And you were right. They both had breakout games last night.
Well, I appreciate the acknowledgement of me being right one time. But I will say this. One thing about Jimmy Horn that I pointed out in that being rightness was simply his yards after the catch. You know, Travis is one of those guys that, don't get me wrong, he will make a move and beat somebody. You saw him do that on his first touchdown. But he's that guy's coming down with those less than 50-50 balls in end zones. Whereas Jimmy Horn Jr., you could put him on a slant, a vertical route, and maybe just throw the ball 6 yards, and he's going to take it another 60 and 70, you know, with his speed, because that first guy's going to miss, and that safety is going to have a bad angle and not be able to catch him as well. And so I knew Jimmy was always capable of big game from a yardage standpoint. You know, had 198 yards in that game, and that one screen pass that he dropped rolling out to the left, had he caught that, he's going to add another 62 plus a touchdown.
Yeah, and that would have that would have been game over if he hadn't have dropped that one there. It wouldn't even have come down to the last second. Hold your breath. Deion Sanders 445 yards. Neely's halfway to 1,000 already.
You know, Tolly, I went and looked at the stats. You remember year 2 against FAMU. Didn't play the fourth quarter and was about 350 yards. The guy was on pace for his week 1s in college, to be a 400-yard plus average, man.
It was,
and I think that's just a credit to when you give this guy time to prepare, which let me point out, because we played on the Thursday going into Labor Day weekend, he's going to have 10 days to prepare for Nebraska. I'm looking just for even more synergy to continue.
And it's not just Jimmy Horn. It's not just he's got quality depth at receiver this year.
So do me a favor and please read Sven Kruzberg's comment so we can talk about that, because I don't know what game this guy was watching.
All right, I will get to that as soon as I find it. I saw one that I wanted to read, but I'll let you go there. And I had one kind of bookmark with my eyeball that I wanted to talk about.
I got it right here. He says, Neely, he gave me 3 E's. I appreciate all the extra E's. He said, I love you, but this was one of the most embarrassing performances I ever saw. No O-line, no defense, and if not for the weak arm or the NDSU QB, the Bluffs lose this game. Don't know what game he was watching. When you say no O-line, when you compare the O-line to last year, which is all we got to go on, Shedeur probably would have been sacked 7 times this time last year, only sacked once. And although we did not have the run game that I hoped for in Charlie or Dallin getting 100 yards, we actually were able to call run plays and mix in the percentage, which I think someone pointed out earlier. And when you talk about the no defense, 6 points in the second half. What are we talking about? What game are you watching?
I will say this about Charlie. I was working last night, Neely. We had 6 HBCU games last night, so I was trying to keep up. And Jackson State almost got ULM. They're going to beat them one year. They only play them like once every 3 years, and it's close every year. Almost got one last night. And so I was working, keeping up with scores, looking at the Colorado game, kind of switching back and forth, trying to stay on top of everything. And I just glanced up, and I said, oh, who's that brother running the ball? I said, oh, that's Charlie. Charlie's fast. and I mean that, with all sincerity as being a compliment. But the boy's got some speed, man.
Yeah, he does. And he has done everything from the spring through the summer to show why he is on this team on a scholarship. And I also think that, as I've said before, I think Dallin Hayden is really going to emerge as the back for this team because his ability to take the thump to the defense. You saw some of that last night, particularly I think it was in that third quarter where he took down about 3 defenders before he was brought down, something our running game could not do last year because we had smaller backs then. I like what we're doing in the running back room. It was that last score Coach Prime talked about in his post-game presser. He really wanted to give the true freshman Michael Welch a chance so everybody could see what he brings to the table. But that last score kind of changed the way we needed to get some other guys in and whatnot. But I feel comfortable with this running back room and with this O-line that can open up holes and get them downfield. So, and when people, criticize this week 1 game, fair, go ahead and criticize it. When people want to say, oh, this was a division down school, a FCS school, you clearly don't know the pedigree and history of North Dakota State, but so be it. But one thing I know we can say, we won.
There is that. All right, let's go to your post-game little walk and talk with Coach Prime. And here's Neely and Coach Prime after the game.
Coach, walk and talk. Been with you 5 seasons. Never seen you lose a home opener.
Yeah, God is good. I mean, we got it. Not the way we wanted it, but a win is a win, and we appreciate a win.
What are some of the things you want to clean up going into next week?
Starting off slow. Alignment in the run at their leisure. That quarterback played a heck of a game. I can't wait to see the statistics, but we wasn't in the first half on third downs. We couldn't get off the field. Yeah. We got much better applying pressure, but at the end of the game, we got to get back to who we are. We can't give up those type of scrambles for touchdowns.
You called it at halftime that the defense is going to respond.
Yeah, we know the defense is going to come back and get with it. They was just a little lackadaisical. Didn't understand the level of expectation, but now they do.
Congrats, Coach. Go get them.
Thank you. God bless.
Bam.
Always got to make a joke, Neely, don't you? Just, you got this big walking talk and bam. It wouldn't be Neely otherwise. I want to go to a comment now. Jalen Rushing, I think, has some optimism and a fair critique, Neely. To tell me how this strikes you from Jalen Rushing in the comments. He says, once the D-line contains better, that defense will be fine. They were getting to the quarterback. It was just sloppy and out of position, just undisciplined. One thing I heard smart people who talk, and I think it was Shannon Sharp, I might have heard talking about this last night with Ocho. He talked about gap assignments and lanes. And we saw, the defense, from the outside collapsing that pocket. The quarterback seemingly had nowhere to go, and then just the Red Sea right in the middle, and he was gone.
Tolly, that comment is not only fair, I think it's coming from somebody who truly knows football and was watching the game. And let me tell you about watching the game. Here's where most fans make the mistake. They watch the ball. They only see where the ball is going. You have to watch, alignments. You have to know what a guy's assignment is. You have to watch them, get to where they're supposed to be in their gaps. And that's one of the things from a discipline standpoint, when plays would get extended or break down, that we would lose containment. And I think that loss of containment, and particularly those penalties at just the wrong time. Penalty is going to happen, but you can't be 3rd and 8 and get a personal foul and extend the drive in the red zone. Like, you can't do that. But overall, I think this defense is not only showing what it's capable of, you can see the potential for the what ifs when this improvement comes over time. So I don't have a problem with that comment at all. I think that containment, was an issue. I think they went in with a game plan to stop number 9, and that was clearly done. They were able to contain him. But, one of the things when you do all this film study and preparation, Tolly, you're basing it off, what someone's previous game or coaching style was. This head coach came from Wyoming, so you watched a lot of Wyoming film. You watched a lot of North Dakota State film and what they typically do. But they don't have a contract with you that's actually what they're going to run and do. They come with new wrinkles. They make adjustments to. Hat off to the North Dakota State coaching staff and getting those guys ready to do things well that we don't do good enough at. And they were able to exploit that. And what it translated to is what you and I talked about, Tolly, ad nauseum. And that means a hell of a lot. The way you beat the Colorado Buffaloes is you have to keep Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr., and that crew on the bench. And these guys controlled the clock all night long. Got away from them in fourth quarter, but when you look at the first 2 quarters, especially in that third quarter, they may have had the ball 80% of the time.
Neely, you know what? And they did do that. And they even had Lady Luck on their side. That interception, Shedeur did his part. Like, that would have been like maybe a shoestring touchdown for Colorado. The defender falls down. He's beaten so bad he's on the ground. Unbeknownst to him, the ball bounces off his heel, his calf, takes this crazy, that was luck from the rooter to the tutor on that play.
Tolly, let's deal with some math. We held them to no score when they got the interception. We scored on the next possession. If you don't have that shoestring fluke interception that only happens in video games, you're talking about a 14-point swing in about 2 minutes of clock. The game is over. And so I think people are forgetting some of the nuances of this particular game. You take away, for instance, the Shiloh Sanders personal foul. You take away one of the offsides call where our defender, it wasn't a jump where he was trying to get a sack. His whole body was lined up, offsides. Something that happens in the first game, not the second, third, or fourth, fifth game. Man, you clean up things like this, you're probably up 21 points going into half versus being down.
I think there's 2 different scenarios, and we opened the show with this. The emotional fan who doesn't understand football. I don't know how I keep getting these black jobs talking about football, but,
And I want your black job.
You're just watching the ball. You're all in your feelings. You're not thinking about schemes and concepts. You just want to stick your chest out that my team won, right? There's that fan. And then there's the fan that just kind of sees, all right, first game, okay, first half. We saw improvement from the second half. There's things to build on. And even more context. Neely, the first game of the year in any college football season, there's always a team that looked like just booty trash, right? And then
Absolutely.
they get it together because it's the first game of the year. Last night in Raleigh, my hometown, Raleigh, North Carolina, Western Carolina, who has no business being that close, was leading NC State, the number 24 team in the country, in the fourth quarter on the road. Would have been a huge upset, but it was the first game of the year. These things happen. Heck, A&T was with Wake Forest. They were leading Wake Forest in the second quarter, FCS team, FBS team. And the difference is late in all of those games, the bigger, the favorite team kind of gets their act together and they go on to win. But again, first game of the year, you're going to see these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So reverse engineering is starting at the back end. Scholarship and talent go hand in hand. You get a lot of scholarships, you're going to get a lot of talent. And so when you're playing a school that has less scholarships, arguably they have less talent. And as the game goes on, the more talented team, can pull out and win. And so when you talk about that Carolina example, that's what you have happen there. But Tyler, we have to keep in mind simply this. College doesn't have preseason like the NFL. There's no dress rehearsals. There's no warm up. There's no joint practices leading into a preseason game. When week 0 comes, week 1 comes, and it's your turn, you go, and you have only been playing each other all summer long. But now you have to do this real thing for the first time. And so there are going to be some uncertainty, some ring rust, some missed assignments, some missed alignment, some blown calls for the officials because it's their first game as well, some head scratchers from the coaches because it's week 1 there as well. But those things tend to, more times than not, correct themselves, and they certainly correct themselves when there's emphasis on it from the head coach. And so think about that fourth down call, which I'm surprised that the chat hadn't been harping on yet, but it's 4th and 1. And Tyler, I got to be honest with you, even though we were in our own territory, with the vibe, the feel, the stadium atmosphere, I had no problem going for that because it's 1 yard. What I had a problem with going for it is you went for it out of shotgun. It was less than a yard. You could have done a QB sneak. You could have put Shador under center with a handoff to Dallin Hayden, the bigger back. But we lined up 6 yards behind the center, and turned a 1 yard run into about an 8 yard run. So that was a head scratcher. We got some things where there's schematics and play calls you got to clean up. But overall, the effort, was made and the game was played. And guess what, Tyler? We can say something that 50% of the teams can't say. We won.
A win is a win. After the game, Coach Prom had an interesting soundbite with the reporter live on ESPN. Colorado did not knock the ball down. They went for the interception on that last, kind of Hail Mary. It didn't reach the end zone, but North Dakota State did catch it. Travis Hunter was trying to tell his teammates, knock it down, knock it down. So they asked Coach Prom what he thought of it. He said, I don't use profanity, but I thought it. I thought that was pretty good. I wonder what word did he think? Because I know what word I would have thought. Let's see, how many letters does it have?
It's 4.
It's got 12 letters.
You going with the big one?
It's got 12. You can put an S on it, make it 13.
Yeah, you put mama in front of it.
There you go. What was the vibe? We saw Coach Prom walking off the field with you, but you followed the team into the locker room. What was the energy like there? Was this a team that was disappointed in their effort? Were they happy with the win? A mix of both? How would you describe inside? Take us inside the room postgame.
Absolutely disappointed in themselves. Later on in the locker room, you had some fun and some shenanigans. But when the team walked through those doors, you could hear a rat piss on cotton in Texas. And we're all the way in Colorado, and rats don't pee hard, and cotton is absorbent. It was almost a tone and tenor as if we lost the game. Coach Prime hadn't come out to speak yet, and Shador was like, "Well, I got it," and started to say, "Man, we got to play better on offense. We can't start slow like that. We got to take better care of the ball with the completion percentages." And just as he was, saying all the things we got to work on before we went to defense, Coach Prime walks out and he's like, no, keep talking. You got it. Because that's some of the stuff I was about to say. And Coach Prime got up there and says, guys, we won on the scoreboard, but we didn't win this game. And it felt just like Apollo, Creed, and Rocky, when the opening comes for Rocky 2, and Apollo's like, hey, I won, but I didn't beat him. And Coach Prime was not satisfied with that W. Now, I'm sitting here as an analyst talking head who ain't played football in 30 damn years, and I'm going to tell you a win is a win. I'll take it. But from a staff standpoint and from a player standpoint, nobody in that room was happy with the performance or the outcome of that game, because they know so many opportunities were wasted or squandered, and so many opportunities were gift wrapped to a team that you didn't have to gift wrap anything to. They are too talented for you to hand opportunity to. They were making opportunities on their own all night long. So, Tolly, the long and short of it, man, nobody in there was celebrating from a victory standpoint. They just know we got some things to clean up, and we got a road trip to Nebraska and then Colorado State. So the goal is to go 1-0 each week. You can check the box on the first week, 1-0.
Well, they love the Rocky references in the chat, and I think our guy Sven, he has a Rocky reference. He might be thinking, he hasn't typed it, but I think he might be thinking, throw the towel, throw the damn towel. He thinks the season is over. He thinks it was all trash. So Sven is ready to throw the towel.
Let me say this, Tolly, about seasons being over. As we look at just the expanded 30,000-foot view of college football this year. We've moved to the expanded playoffs, 12 teams in the playoffs, 4 teams with automatic berths if you win your conference championship. So keep that in mind. All you got to do is win your conference championship, and then the rest are seeded by where they finished in the remaining 8. Let me tell you what's going to happen in college football this year. There will be somebody in the playoffs with 1 loss. There will be somebody in the playoffs with 2 losses. There's even going to be somebody in the playoffs with 3 losses, because you can have 3 losses and still be in your conference championship game and win that game. Gone are the times of where you lose a game, now your season is over. You've had that in the past in college football as it relates to playing for a championship or even your conference championship. Tolly, with this new format, you don't have to bury your season just because you took an L. And this is a game we won, and this is a game we got plenty to hang our hat on. Over 400 yards passing with one guy with 198, Travis with 3 touchdowns. We got a lot to build on here, a lot to fix and a lot to grow. But you're talking about a season where what your goals are for one of the first times in college football, you can hit a bump or 2 in the road and still get there.
And you might play someone that beat you previously, and beating them the second time will be the final word. That is possible. Neely, I hope one side effect of this expanded playoff is that teams won't feel the need to run up the score when they don't have to, just so they can stay higher and more relevant in the rankings, because they feel like every single thing is taken into factor when that voting and your spot in the poll was at a premium because only a handful of teams were getting in. Let's talk a little more about Deion Sanders. You talked about some of the things we could expect improvement-wise, a little bigger, a little faster. He was very evasive last night. Some of those kind of reverse counter escape routes, some of those last year didn't go well. He just ran himself into trouble, and he was running for his life. But man, that escapability last night was he ran that to perfection. Only 1 sack, and the one play that I loved, Neely. And let's talk about it from a couple of different angles. He kind of does that little reverse and escapes from the pressure. It looks like he's going to run and pick up yardage, maybe try to, go for the first down, but he spots his receiver. He stops. He goes from sprinting to stopping, and then sets his feet a little 1-2 and throws a dart. Let's stop right there. How hard it is and how good of an athlete you have to be to go from sprinting to a complete stop, set your feet. The defense that's chasing you did not stop. They are still running. So you have to gauge how much time you have to stop, set your feet. You have to find your target. You have to keep a side eye on this defender behind you who tore him up after he released the ball. And then you got to keep your eye on the defender, like how open is your man? Like there's like 4 different things that require instant reaction, both physically and mentally. And that play I thought was a couple of different things. It was like, yeah, that's kind of what he does. And I think we kind of just take those things for granted. And then there was, oh my God, that was so outstanding that he was able to do all those things and get the first down.
You know, Tolly, here's an I told you so moment, brother. I don't have a lot to say in response to that other than I told you so. You know, we talked about the aspects of this team that needed to get better. The offensive line and its protection of Shedeur. The defensive line and its ability to stop the run. We also said it doesn't just stop there, that the great players on this team are going to have to get greater as well. And I told you guys in the offseason, you know, what Shedeur had been working on, his core strength, his leg strength, getting his speed up, getting his arm strength up and not losing accuracy with being able to go deeper with the ball. And I think you saw that last night. Travis Hunter, we talked about how he's just been a naturally gifted athlete all these years, but he focused on the weight room this offseason, put on 17 pounds of muscle. And these were guys who were leaders on this team who didn't have to wake up and say, man, you know, I think I'm going to improve on some things. They could have just rested where they were. But you saw last night that Deion Sanders is a better quarterback than he was last year. Travis Hunter is a better wide receiver than he was last year. He's a better defensive back than what he's last year. I think he only missed 2 plays, and one of those because his helmet came off and he had to come out for a play. These guys have gotten better over the offseason. Shedeur is who he is. We've talked all the time about him being the top quarterback in the nation, and people push back on that. I think when you see the rest of college football this weekend, and as we keep going through this calendar and this schedule, you're going to see that his numbers, you know, just certainly bear that out. And Travis Hunter is the most prolific individual talent in college football, whichever side of the ball you want to put him on. And these guys, again, did not rest this offseason. They wanted to get better, and they did just that. They got better.
Neely, one of the things that I also noticed about Shedeur was his ability to maintain his accuracy throwing the ball as he was getting hit. A lot of times, and it's that's physical and mental, because you mentally have to say, I'm giving up my body. I'm going to get decleated here, but I got to make this completion. Where, you know, some people, you know, just that little bit of disturbance, you know, you're too close to the elbow, too close to the arm, can throw. But his accuracy, when I was like, oh my God, they got him. And I was like, man, how did he make that pass with I mean, you could smell whatever the lineman had for pregame meal because they were in his face.
Well, I think it's kind of the reverse of what Barry Sanders once said. Someone asked Barry Sanders how he was so elusive in his running back career, and he said, it's easy. I don't like getting hit, and so I avoid getting hit. Well, Shedeur loves completions. He loves completion percentages, you know, being 75, 80, 85%. And one of the reasons he can stand in the pocket like that is he's not looking at the rush. He's not looking at the guy that's coming. His eyes are downfield, trying to find the receiver, going through his progressions, making sure the guys are in the right routes, checking over to the other one and making the pass. And if a hit comes with it, you know, so be it. Now, there are times when he does his, you know, 5-step drop and he now can see the rushers, and you saw his elusiveness last night with his legs, that he can spin in the opposite direction that he's going to throw and make a lineman miss. So he has that as well. But when he's doing a 3-step drop and stepping back up into the pocket, man, his eyes are downfield. And so if one of these D linemen are about to touch me after the pass or during the pass, I'll feel it when I feel it, but my eyes are downfield at my target. And that's what the great quarterbacks do, whether it's Brady, Manning, you name it, their eyes are downfield. All
right, good analysis there, Neely. Let's go to the chat, Neely, because we have a super fan. 2K Nola has dropped $9.99 to speak his piece 2 times. So we're going to read exactly what he said. Whether we agree,
word for word.
Whether we agree or not, we're going to read this out loud.
The lights ain't went out this episode. That $9.99 going on BBL Tyler Light Bill. We appreciate the super chat.
Our brother needed to. Neely, the daycare called me today. The daycare called me. They're like, Mr. Carr, we've been trying to process. Y'all know how it be. All right, 2K Nola. Please let the D-line know if they cannot get pressure on the QB, they ball swat. They should still have visibility in the backfield without positioning to go left or right. I'll buy it.
I like that.
I'll buy it.
I like that.
2K Nola, one more. If starters make mistakes, they should lose their spot. Starters should be held accountable for mistakes. Number 43, missing assignments. Shiloh, late hit, offsides, blowing blocks need to be replaced. All right, now players are going to mess up now.
I hear the spirit of that, Tolly. I hear the spirit of that, but it also becomes personnel based. So let's make it the Trevor Woods, Shiloh, the ones he mentioned. I think you noticed that after a couple of bungles by Trevor, if you want to put it that way, he did come out the game and Jeremiah Brown went in. But don't lose sight of the fact that Trevor also led the team in tackles last night. And so he was still doing his thing out there. As it relates to Shiloh being pulled, it's going to be hard to do that in the same game that Cameron Silver-Craig got hurt, because then you're rotating Herman Smith in for Cameron Silver-Craig, and you are able to do some things defensively back there. But Shiloh was the leader on the team in tackles last year, and I think second last night in tackles. So sometimes from a personnel standpoint, you may be able to pull a starter for a series or two to talk to him and coach him up on the bench, but pulling a guy for an entire game because he made a mistake, the depth that you got to have and the readiness you got to have, that may not be available to you each series or each week or game after game. But I do hear and agree with the spirit of what you're saying, though.
Right, and players are going to make mistakes. First game of the year, to pull them for the entire game, maybe a little talking to on the sidelines when needed. But when you talk about Trevor, brand new position. Like, he had a position switch in the offseason, and again, you can practice, and it seems like everything is everything, but with anything in life, when it becomes real for that first time, it just feels different, and people respond differently. You need to get one under your belt.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better, man. And, one thing about this team, it's a team, and they're focused on winning. Even in the post-game presser, Shedeur and Travis did theirs together, and they were asked about individual accolades. And, they said, man, we could care less. We want to win. We want to win as a team, and we're not thinking about, Travis sat there, looked down at the stat sheet, saw that Jimmy had 198 yards, looked up at the camera and said, man, Jimmy should be in here. He knew Jimmy had a big game, but he didn't know he had 198 yards. These guys are really not into that individual thing like that, and it's all about what the team is accomplishing or not accomplishing.
Well, there was an individual thing. We didn't talk about it on Wednesday. I want to quickly get to it before we run out of our hour allotment here on the Pregame Show Rewind, right here on the Pregame Show Network. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We enjoy the company on a Friday afternoon. To all 620 people on the stream right now, make sure you like, share, let people know what's going on. Back to what I was saying, Neely. Sometimes I get old and I totally forget. Oh, yes. Shedeur, Nike NIL deal. He was plastered all over Times Square. Even a little piece of Neely was in Times Square. We saw your belly in Times Square up on the big board.
A little piece of the biggest part of Neely made the ad.
Look, it doesn't get old. These are things you have to appreciate. You have to acknowledge. Look, being in Times Square doesn't help you against North Dakota State, but the overall impact that this new regime at Colorado has had and the visibility, I mean, it's everywhere, Neely, everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're here to talk team, and we just talked about how important the team is to these guys being Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. But let's make this thing individual just for a second, if we may. We got to stop acting like this is normal. Just because you see Travis do it every week, just because you've seen Shedeur do it 4 years now since Jackson State, doesn't mean that it is normal. It's the same thing when you watch greats like LeBron James or even Michael Jordan or Kobe. You get so used to it that you start to take it for granted. If you just play back in your mind, man, the number of athletes, and I'm talking about professional athletes because NIL really just started here. How many quarterbacks, black quarterbacks, do you see on a billboard in Times Square in your lifetime? And here's a brother playing football at Colorado, and spinning it everywhere with ultimate control, throwing at about 80% completion rate. One interception last night, which was fluky at best. And he's on a billboard in Times Square, and he's Nike's first NIL football collegiate athlete. Like, sometimes you got to stop and, whether you're a hater or a lover, and just appreciate what you're witnessing in this timeline of college football, particularly from a young brother that's accomplishing it, and the future is bright for him. I don't know how people can sit up and say that he's not a first rounder, that he shouldn't be considered for the Heisman. The numbers just don't bear that out. Particularly, I know the Heisman is a single season award, but just look what he's accomplished in his 4-year career as a starter. I said that, Tolly. He has started for 4 years, 8 if you count high school. Most people don't start 8 years or 4 years. This guy's been at the forefront of it, never been in trouble, never been, risky to do this or that, and just steady putting up numbers. And that's what gets you in Times Square on a billboard with my belly right behind you.
Neely, always in the shot. Always. You watch the game. You cannot watch ESPN, NBC. You're going to see Neely. Like, Neely knows where the cameras are, and he knows how to get in the shot, even just partially. Neely's going to be there.
Now, Tolly, if what you were saying was true, I wouldn't look like Wilson on Home Improvement in that Nike ad. If I'd known that picture, that shot was, I would have dipped under his underarm or been right there by the watch.
You might have been you could have been photoshopped out. You know what I mean? Like, your face could have been sticking out. Like, they could have just photoshopped Neely out. I don't know why they want to do that. Let's go back to the chat again. We want to stay connected. Deb Bell wants to know, Neely, a good place in Boulder to watch the game for a party of 8. So if you got your squad, you're coming to Boulder, and you just want to watch the game, hang out, get some good food, have some good, TV spread out, where's a good place to go, Neely?
I would go to BJ's. BJ's is not unfamiliar to college towns, but they got TVs everywhere and a diverse menu, and you can see the game. And they typically, even when we have 10 a.m. Mountain kickoffs, they open early for those. So I would recommend BJ's for that, man. Can't beat it.
All right, we're gonna have a little lesson here, boys and girls. This is what is called when you can identify sarcasm. What a person says doesn't mean that's what they mean. They are like kind of throwing shade at someone else. All right. So sometimes I do that, and you all think I'm saying literally what I'm saying, and I'm not saying that. I'm using sarcasm. Phyllis Porter gets sarcasm. She says, how can an irrelevant team be on a billboard in New York City? Can Feinbaum explain that? Well played, Phyllis. Well played.
Yeah, that is well played. I saw one a little bit before after Phyllis. A guy said, these are impressionable kids, keep the cameras and celebrities out of practice, and if you disagree, screw you. Like, we disagree with you, Coach. So can we say screw you? Like, how people think that their way of thinking is the only allowable way of thinking is beyond me.
It's America, Neely.
Trump's America.
From the boat. From the moment the Plymouth Rock.
Hey, Humble King 94, great point. We just hadn't gotten to that part yet where we talk about the specifics of the defense, but Bentley had a lovely game yesterday. In fact, last night in the postgame show live, he was my defensive player of the game, not only because of the plays he made, but when he made them, the impact that they had on the game, particularly that sack. I think had about 4 tackles for losses. Bentley was all over. I don't know how people, you talk about block bully on the defensive line. I think we just saw a totally different game. I don't know how we could say, hey, let's shout out Bentley and block bully in the defensive line, and then 2 chats later, the defensive line sucks. Like, what?
Out of all the names that were called last night, Bentley's name was definitely called the most on the broadcast, as I remembered, as my instant recall, which can be a little fuzzy. His name was definitely called a lot last night.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk a little Nebraska before we get out of here in the waning moments of the show. You said they're going to have some extra time because Colorado has played Thursday of week 1, so they're going to have 10 days to prepare. I would imagine Nebraska is going to be looking for some – look, this is always a revenge game. There's always feelings. There's always emotions. It is a big rivalry. But Colorado got that dub last year. I know that Nebraska Nation really wants to get some get back.
Yeah, absolutely. They want some get back. It was a totally, one-sided victory last year. Now we go into hostile territory playing them at home, and they want some get back. But I think, as we said on this show today, Tolly, Shedeur has 10 days to prepare. I responded to a comment that just went by. I think this game absolutely helps you with Nebraska and going. Instead of opening, with some quote-unquote cupcake season opener, you really had a test. You really had a tough time. It made you gel and bring some things out from the coaches and the players. It can only aid you going forward. I've seen some people ask how Cam is doing. I expect him to be totally available for the game against Nebraska, so that 10-day stretch is going to help him as well. I think this team is going to do all the things it needs to do to make sure we go to Nebraska and win, just like we took care of Nebraska here last year with a W. So it's going to be a great road trip. It's going to be a good week preparation going forward. Later today, the team is practicing. Coach Prime does have practice the day after games. However, it's only for the people who played less than 60% of the game. If you played 60% or more, you're just in tennis shoes and shorts and standing over to the side doing your stretches and recovery. But it's called a development practice for those who did not play more than half of the game. And then there'll be an off day on Saturday. And then Sunday, it's Nebraska week. It's rival week. It's hate week going into that Nebraska game on the road trip.
And that's going to be that's the NBC game, right? That game will be on NBC.
That is correct. It is the NBC game. Our first 4 games are televised on 4 different networks. So for these first 4 weeks, you'll get to see the Buffs in prime time, if you will, the prime time slot of that particular network. So this one will be on NBC next week.
It's amazing how much the Colorado fever is everywhere. Even if you like it or you don't like it, it still burns the same, right? I live here in Atlanta, and Georgia is Georgia all the time. On the radio today driving, I have not listened to shows from start to finish, but Neely, Georgia plays Clemson on Saturday. I have not heard a thing about Georgia. Every single show has been talking about Colorado from last night. It is some things have their 5 minutes of fame or 15 minutes of fame or whatever. This thing seems like it just grows like a monster in a horror movie. The more you fight it, the more it just keeps growing.
I said that on the post Thursday morning before kickoff. The more this team is attacked, the more it's persecuted, the more it's doubted, the more it's hated, the more the territory increases. I would say to the haters that if you really want this to go away, stop talking about it, because the more you talk about it, the more it puts up and makes you shut up. So I'm looking forward to this week 2. Historically, it's a rivalry game here. The hatred is real between the two schools, and so you got back-to-back rivalry games. You got your out-of-state rival in Nebraska, and then you travel to Colorado State for your in-state rival. So the next 2 weeks are going to be interesting in Colorado football. Noted in that is both of these opponents you took care of last year. If you do the same this year, that puts you at 3 wins, and then you start looking toward, okay, when is that 4th and 5th win coming? Because while you're in that stretch of the schedule, all the haters and doubters are going to say, well, we saw this last year. We saw you come out hot and then fizzle. So once we get over that hump of making sure that this team is not a fluke, but as Coach Prime got the microphone post-game and spoke to the crowd last night, he said, look, check the box. We won. That's one step closer to getting Miss Peggy to a bowl game, and that's what the goal is. The goal is a bowl game.
I'm just laughing because there was another Shechelle reference. I love when there's callbacks. Like that's the greatest thing about comedy. So Ms. Dawn Duncan says, I need to do a better job blocking people, and said, if I won't do it, she said, hell, call Shechelle. See if she. Oh, thank you for that laugh, Dawn. All right, let's quickly hit on a couple things. 100 touchdown passes in his college career last night, counting his 2 years at Jackson State. That's a heck of a number, Neely, 100 touchdowns. And just, basically, in 3 years because this was just, the first game of the year. He missed the game last year. So that's a heck of a number for Shedeur Sanders.
It is, man. And, you look at the accumulation of those stats, you include Jackson State in that as well. And even last night during the press conference, Shedeur mentioned that when he was asked about his chemistry with Travis Hunter, and he talked about, man, it started at Jackson State. We played together at Jackson State, developed our chemistry there, had the same goals. It was big of Travis to come to a HBCU. Then we transferred here together. And we never forget those moments there, and we build on those moments, and that's our chemistry. And I say all that to say because his 100 touchdown pass was to Travis Hunter. And I think you're going to have more and more added to that. So Shedeur is a phenomenal talent, but he will – when I asked him about the 100 touchdowns, his response to me was, yeah, but, we had some completions that got away from us, and they should have been completed passes, and we can't do that because that takes away opportunities to score and get the defense back on the field. So he is more interested, man, in what he's doing as a team than the individual, but he is aware and thoughtful about how he got here and where he comes from, and to build on and recognize that process as well.
Warren Sapp, his reaction to the play of the D-line, did you get a chance to see his interaction and his conversations with the players last night?
I will tell you this, Tolly, I got some footage of him, and he was silent like he said he would be. He did his coaching in the locker room. He was not overly excited about the play of the D-line early on in the game because of that containment that one of the commenters mentioned, but he did tell me at halftime that he felt good about what was going to take place in the second half, and true to his word, just like Coach Prime said too, held them to 6 points. So I think the D-line is only going to get better because they're going to be more assignment sound. It's sometimes when things don't look the way you thought they were going to look, you get out of your assignment, and now you're in somebody else's gaps and the play goes the other way. Those things are fixable in practice and in the film room. So I think they'll be improved and ready for Nebraska.
All right, one more from the chat, and then we'll get out of here. Neely, who said it? Try to find it. I'm sorry, I'm not giving proper credit to the name, but someone asked about scouts. B.PE, B.PE wants to know, Unc, did you talk to any scouts, or did you see any scouts? What was the scout presence like at the game?
Well, every day of practice, we have anywhere from 3 to 9 NFL teams represented, and they're taking notes. Last night, we had 31 representatives from the NFL, not just scouts, but also in the player personnel department, check in with us that they were attending the game. As Tolly Carr says, Neely going to always find a moment to play. And so when you ask him if I talk to the scouts, generally I just speak and keep it moving. But last night I informed 2 of them when they walked by me in the tunnel. I said, hey, man, I already committed to the Cowboys. My bad. I didn't know y'all were coming.
How about them boys? All right, Neely, what can people expect on the Pregame Show Network this weekend, the 9 to 10 days to go before we get to the Nebraska game?
Yes, sir. So dropped right before this live, we're taking you behind the scenes. You get to see Jason Phillips walking the warm-up lines and encouraging the players. Also, Coach Prime's pregame speech, and they get ready to take the field. Part 2 will be dropping tomorrow, and that starts with Ralphie Run, the coin toss, and takes you all the way through halftime. And then Sunday we will drop that last part of it. Also dropping today is the full press conference from Coach Prime, Travis, and Shedeur. That'll be dropping right after this live episode. Then you can't forget on Mondays when we look back at the week that was, Chef Carl Solomon and all the food that Neely got to eat and Tolly didn't. So we got a busy weekend coming before we get to those team meetings next week. Always just check in with the pregame show. We're right now 593 watching live. Shout out to that 593 watching. Y'all be sure to hit that thumbs up like button, and also subscribe and spread the word with somebody, because I like hanging out live with my guy, Tolly Carr.
You better know it, brother. You better know it. And I need y'all to get on Uncle Neely, because Uncle Neely showed up about, let's see, we came on 2 Eastern time. I'm calling Neely. Where's Neely? Where's Neely? Neely came on about 1:58 and 30 seconds. Had me as nervous as I was watching the game last night. So make sure you give Neely the business in the chat to,
Hey, but
I
might have checked in 90 seconds before show start, but I was ready when the show started.
Sunglasses and all. My man. He's Uncle Neely. We will talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. This is the Pregame Show Rewind right here on the Pregame Show Network. We appreciate you. We appreciate the super chat. We had 2 super chats. Like, anytime you want a super chat, we will read exactly what you have to say, and we won't pick on you that bad at all, because who does not love the super chat? All right, guys, enjoy your weekend. We'll get together next week. We'll do it all again. For Neely, I'm Tolly. We'll see you next time. Okay.